You know, it makes all the sense in the world. You have one Democratic Party tool who couldn't get the party's presidential nomination standing next to another Democratic Party tool who couldn't get the party's presidential nomination. Well, I guess losers do indeed run in packs. But look what is really going on here. Jesse Jackson, he figured that he was going to drag himself out of mothballs so he could be the black face for Bernie the Bigot Sanders and try to get some of those Michigan, Reed, Detroit votes. That's what it's about. There really are no red states in the United States. There are no red states. There's just blue cities, large blue cities. Illinois is a Republican state, but Chicago is the Democrat enclave led by the black vote. And the same thing goes for California. California, believe it or not, is a Republican state. That's the reason why it passed Proposition 8, trying to ban gay marriage. You have a red state that's got some pockets of blue influence. And similar dynamics hold even for places like New York. Pennsylvania is another great example. That's why they got that old political adage that Pennsylvania is Pittsburgh in the west, Philadelphia in the east, and Alabama in between. But the fact that they had Jesse Jackson out here trying to sell the soap, what does that tell you? It tells you that the white powers that be, they don't have any other play. This is what they're going to keep doing. They're going to keep dragging these fools out because they have to. Oh, the white media loves propping up clowns like Messy Jesse, though this tactic is becoming less and less effective. Trying to bring out some civil rights retreads or some pork chop preachers. And apparently they're going to say, you black folks, y'all vote for this do-nothing Democrat here. Don't ask for nothing, no. Don't ask for nothing. It's too important. We got to get him in office first before we can ask for anything. We got to get him in office first. And then as soon as they're in office, well, if y'all had asked for something first, maybe. No, what's happening is they're going to have to actually make solid pledges to us, and it's going to be for what we want. They're not going to come up to us and tell us, well, what we want, it's not feasible. It's just not feasible. They just got through passing a $2.1 trillion stimulus package, 3/4 of which are going to be going to the biggest corporations in America. On my Twitter feed, I posted about how you had Boeing Airlines, no less, who is going to be getting a huge portion of that stimulus money. Boeing was saying to the federal government that if the federal government wanted to have an equity stake as the price of the bailout, then Boeing's CEO was saying, hey, we'll just look at other options because we got plenty of other options. Now, if that's the case, if Boeing's got all of these plenty of other options, then why is Boeing trying to get some bailout money? It's because at the end of the day, they know that this do-nothing government, this white supremacist sham parading as if it's some sort of legitimate deliberative body, they know that these guys are not going to actually turn them down. As Noam Chomsky said, government is the shadow cast by business. And what business wants, business gets. But what goes unsaid is that if you got a bunch of people, if you got a whole bunch of disaffected radicals in the society who have decided they're coming for what's theirs, they focus their will, they can get what they want too. Now let's not go kidding ourselves. This is not going to be a quick and easy process. We are going to make this white supremacist system of a necessity. We will have to make it do something that it is not designed to do. You're going to have to make this system break it to your will. It is not natural for this white supremacist system to actually abide by and carry out the dictates of justice. This white supremacist system was created precisely for the purpose of trying to stonewall, if not stamp out, justice. So we are going to have to make it do things that it was not designed to do. But we can do that if we are persistent. And that's what we are doing right now. We are not going to be having any Negroes running around telling us what we can't get and what we can't have. These fools get sent packing. I don't have anybody around me who is constantly pulling against what it is that we're trying to do. The black agenda is tangibles, full stop. starting with reparations, but also every day in every way. We put tons of tax money into this country, and every day we watch as our tax money is taken from us and given to everyone except for us. The government deliberately targets certain enclaves and certain groups and neighborhoods for investment, and they deliberately redline ours. And this continues until we make it very clear we'll bring the whole damn system to a halt, to a standstill. We'll make it where the damn thing can't work at all, because the political scam is predicated on the idea of controlled opposition. But in order for a system of controlled opposition to work, in order for you to have a puppet master who has two puppets on strings misleading the audience, in order for that to work, then both of those puppets must be operational. If you cut or otherwise hamper the strings of one of those puppets, people are going to realize, there's one side that seems to be operational, but the other one's not at all. See, the otherwise, what people have been conditioned to think of as the push and pull of the Democrat and Republican parties, it's nothing more than two separate wings of the same white supremacist con game getting their turn. And that's mostly for the political benefit of the rubes at home. They get to think that their guys are in power, but of course, it's not your government. It's just your turn. That's all. And your turn is not going to benefit you. It's going to be instead benefiting Boeing and United Airlines and the cruise liner companies, who, by the way, most of whom are actually incorporated outside the United States. These guys don't put anything into the federal budget, and yet they're going to be allowed to get billions of dollars of taxpayer loot when they themselves deliberately incorporated outside the United States so that they wouldn't have to pay taxes. So you got a bunch of companies who put nothing into the kitty, pay nothing into the kitty, and yet they're going to be getting as much as they want out of it. Who's got it better than that? And look at how easily they did it. No study required. You would think that for the biggest federal bailout in U.S. history, in fact, the biggest economic effort in federal history, you would think that they would have to be taking months to do a study. Oh, no. It's too crucial. We have to do this immediately. In fact, you can't even look at anything. You can't even think it over. We can't even examine it. Just go ahead and pass it. No study, no congressional hearings, no testimony required, no problem. Now, I've been saying for the longest time that as far as our reparations goes, $16 to $20 trillion, you ain't got to cough it up all at once, but you got to cough it up. We'll take it in installments. Hell, that was the first installment right there. You see what the federal government did. So when they're sitting here telling you what they ain't got, what they really mean is what we're not going to do for you. Let this stand as a lesson to you. The money has always been there. It's never been a matter of, we ain't got the money. It's never been a matter of, it would scare us to death to have to cough up that much cash. Why? The taxpayers would be in revolt. They just got through passing a $2 trillion stimulus, 3/4 of which are not even going to be going to the American people. They're going to be going to corporate interests. This is the biggest giveaway in world history. And they weren't concerned about voter backlash. The Democrats weren't concerned about that. And the Republicans, who were supposed to be the party of small government, they're supposed to be the party of keep the government from interfering with private enterprise. As far as they were concerned, we're not concerned about deficits anymore. This bill is going to cause deficits as far as the eye can see in perpetuity. They didn't care. So what does that tell you? As black folks, we got to stop letting everybody else tell us that we're asking for too much. We got to stop letting everybody tell us that whenever we show up and we demand what is ours, well, you shouldn't have it. You don't deserve it. There's always some excuse for why we're not supposed to get it. But everybody else, you had a few. You remember how this whole stimulus talk began, don't you? It began around the beginning of March when you had an Asian American congresswoman who was saying that Asian American businesses needed a bailout. It started in New York with some Asian American businesses. Started off talking about $5 billion, and here we are, something like what? Something on the order of 400 times that much. This is what happened very, very quickly. It just snowballed like that. But it didn't begin with anyone saying, hey, we got these black businesses who have been suffering for the longest time. If anybody needs to be bailed out, and you wouldn't even have to be doing it to the tune of $2 trillion. It's kind of like talking about the deaths from the coronavirus. I posted on Twitter that when you look and see how many black folks have died, that happens every year, 80,000 black people every year. And this according to a study that was done by the former Surgeon General, David Satcher. And yet, that's not a national emergency. Yeah, it's never one when it's us. And yet, you got Messy Jesse, who thinks that the best thing he can be doing with his time is trying to help Bernie the bigot Sanders, who voted for the '94 crime bill. And Jackson didn't even have the common decency or the common sense to at least acknowledge the elephant in the room. And how stupid Messy Jesse must feel now that his boy Bernie is going to be unceremoniously shown the door yet again. And he ain't going to have Hillary to blame this time. I can only imagine how the Bernie bros are going to be whining and complaining. There shall be much wailing and gnashing of teeth, not to mention on the floor kicking and screaming. But you know who else is going to be helplessly thrashing on the floor? The white media. Because when they try the old playbook and nothing comes of it, they're looking and going, well, damn, we're kicking these old bootlicks into overdrive and it just isn't producing anything. What the hell are we going to do? They understand that they're not going to be able to count on the coronavirus distraction, because that's what it mostly is at this point. Whatever it was that might have been expected in the way of some replay of the 1918 Spanish flu epidemic, that ain't going to happen. In fact, it was never in the cards to begin with, but it's not going to happen. So they can go ahead and play this game of, oh, we can't be talking about any sort of economic justice for the former slaves of this country. Why? We got to be concerned about the coronavirus. There's going to be a national massacre. And then they'll be talking about, well, we can't be concerned about any reparations. Why? Look at the unemployment rate. Businesses are hurting, don't you know? Well, businesses are hurting right now. Unemployment's 3 million unemployment claims and counting. And yet they passed a $2 trillion stimulus, 3/4 of which doesn't even go to working Americans. It goes to some of the biggest and wealthiest corporations on the planet, some of whom have already admitted they don't even need it. See, as black folks, we let people like Messy Jesse get out here and tell us that we should accept the excuses told by his white paymasters. And of course, they play the game of, well, Jesse is your designated spokesperson and he's going to speak up for you. And what he does is he gives at worst a tisk tisk. And he lets white power get away with saying whatever the hell it wants to. That day is done. And speaking of done, the old dead black media, on their last legs, they're still sitting here huffing and gasping like some poor chronic smoker who's got COPD or something. You got News One talking about our old buddy Andrew Gillum. Yep, Andy Sweeten Down Low Gillum. And they, of course, being just like the rest of their ilk, just like Joy Reid and Roly Poly and the rest of the fakers, frauds, phonies, and fools, their headline was Andrew Gillum set up. Was he set up? Really? That's what you're going with? We're going to float a conspiracy theory, so we're not actually going to say that he was, but we're going to put the question out there. This is the equivalent of throwing a rock and hiding your hands. There's absolutely no evidence whatsoever that Andrew Gillum was set up. The black media had been saying for the longest time Andrew Gillum is obviously a homosexual. So when he gets caught in a hotel room with a gay escort and drugs, some of which are used to induce an erection, you got more pills than a freaking pharmacy. The dude brings along his own bag. Is this guy supposed to be a gay escort or a traveling doctor? Apparently he's both. But I guess he should have spent a little bit more time in medical school, because the gay escort / freelance pharmacy, this guy got an overdose and had a heart attack. But when he recovered, he decided to poke some holes in Andrew Gillum's story this time. And he said, hey, I don't know about this wedding thing that Andrew said he was in town for. Why, I was here to see him. And News One's acting like they don't know anything about that. See, what it just goes to show is this. Andrew Gillum's married with children, kind of like Barack Obama. See, when people compare Andrew Gillum to Barack Obama, they're right in more ways than one. Difference is Andrew Gillum kind of got forced out of the closet. Barack Obama, that day is coming probably sooner than you think. But Andrew Gillum had no problem using some black woman as his beard and even having children by her so that his little deception would be complete. He had no problem with that whatsoever. So he's trying to portray himself as being a conscientious family man concerned about the people by day, and by night, he's having gay trysts, drug-fueled orgies with male escorts. But here's the thing you need to remember. If Andrew Gillum had become governor, do you truly believe that he would not be doing this? This wasn't the result of, well, I lost my gubernatorial bid, so I might as well let it all hang out. After all, it's not like I can get voted out of office or anything. And all I got coming up is some crappy CNN show with some other irrelevant Negroes, so it's not exactly like I got much to lose. No, if he had become governor, he'd been doing the same thing. The only difference is you wouldn't have heard about it, most likely. And that male escort, who to my eyes appears to be some sort of, I don't know, Latino or something. He doesn't quite look like your typical run-of-the-mill garden variety white guy to me. It looks like he might be one of them biracials, mixed or what have you. But the point is, if you want to know why Andrew Gillum seemed to be more interested in immigration, well, it seems as if he likes foreign men. And if you're wondering why it was that Andrew Gillum just wasn't very concerned about the black community, it's because he had other things on his mind. Getting closer to certain constituencies. Yeah, I guess this is why so many politicians, especially black politicians, are very, very much concerned about the well-being of America's sex workers. Yeah, they're very concerned about the well-being of America's sex workers and the LGBTQ community. Because that's who they're closest to, the sex workers and the alphabet people. That's who they're closest to. And as for the black community, well, we're the ones they're trying to get away from. But the white media wants us to think, well, you should vote for these guys anyway. Just vote for them anyway. And the dead black media mouthpieces are sitting here trying to distract from the fact that these guys clearly were never concerned about us to begin with. Was Andrew Gillum set up? Yeah, somebody lured him to that hotel room, and then they got him to start drinking as much alcohol as possible, and here he is taking drugs, and he falls out and starts vomiting. They forced him to do that. Oh, when some gay prostitutes came in, they also told him, don't leave, just stay right here. Yeah, he was set up. Give me a break. You see, this is not the time for trying to cover Andrew Gillum's behind. He certainly needs to keep his behind covered because there are pictures of him naked on the floor. So if anybody needs to cover their behind, it's definitely him. But this is not the time for any of us to be covering his behind. This is the time for us to be asking serious questions, because you better believe, as I have always told you, when it comes to white supremacy never picks a tool without knowing exactly how they're going to break that tool when the time comes, and the time always comes. They always know exactly how they're going to break that tool when they need to, because they have no long-term plans for any of these fools. They go ahead and prop them up and go ahead and make them prominent. That way, when the time comes to break them, they can point and say, hey, look at this squeaky clean nigger over here. Yeah, you guys thought that he was America's dad. Oh, Michael Jackson, the biggest entertainer on the planet till he wouldn't play ball with Sony. Yeah, when it comes to some black person, especially black men, the white media's always got the last page of their career. They've already written the final page, the final chapter of that black person's career in public life, and the final chapter is always a crushing tragedy. They make sure that that's their narrative. But Andrew Gillum, the fact that this man was nowhere near the black agenda, that should have made it right then and there where no black folks should have been willing to fool with them, and we should have had no patience for any old dead black media outlets or mouthpieces or shills like Roly Poly trying to tell us how good for business Andrew Gillum was going to be. But this is who the white media was attempting to big up, and who the white media was attempting to magnify the presence and importance and prominence of, and trying to pull the old Barack Obama heartstrings with the black community. Andrew Gillum, he's up and coming. Why? Well, because the white media says so, buddy. And if we say so, it is so. And this is what they knew about him. What, you think they didn't know all this, man? The black media, we didn't even know who the hell he was. But as soon as we were sitting here looking at the pictures of him, and every time we look up, there seems to be some guy, usually non-black, usually some white male or close equivalent thereof, that he seems to want to be in the pictures with. And it's like, man, he's just this guy just spends way too much time trying to be close to as many men as possible. And you can look at the freaking pictures. This dude is sitting here radiating LGBT. And the thing is, the fact that he's got a wife and kids, that didn't mean anything. The white media already knew this about him. They just wanted to see if they could get over on you. And they almost did if the black media hadn't been on the job. Now, before anybody asks any stupid questions, as far as what Andrew Gillum chooses to do in the bedroom, that's his own concern, though there are questions that if a man goes so far to perpetrate a fraud, to try to promote a deception that he would go and marry a woman and then have children by her, because he's not thinking about those kids. He's thinking about trying to create some sort of image of, I have this nice family for my photo ops, and that's what he was thinking about. He was thinking about how good this is going to look for the cameras. He's trying to make sure that he's putting forward an image that he knows not to be true. Well, first thing that tells me is if you're going to make a lifelong commitment to a woman and you're lying to her about what you are and what your intentions are, that's a deal breaker right there for me. And if you go and have kids by her simply because you think that that's going to help fool the public, or as far as you're concerned, you're going to see these kids and you're going to think he can't possibly be gay. Look, the biggest problem I got with Andrew Gillum is the fact that he's dishonest. His sexuality is not the big issue. We already said this about Pete Buttigieg. If Pete Buttigieg came out, well, not came out like that, but if Pete Buttigieg came forward and said, I am fully on board with reparations, a $20 trillion package, just the beginning, and to make sure that the black community has the proper taxpayer investment that they're supposed to have, they put money into the tax system. They're supposed to be getting money out of it. We are also going to be viciously and aggressively prosecuting not just police, but DAs and state's attorneys who make it a point to incarcerate black people. We're also going to make sure that those who are persecuting black people are prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. If Pete Buttigieg had been talking like that, then it would have been a matter of, hey, I don't have to endorse what he does in the bedroom so long as he toes the line everywhere else. If it's a matter of I got to choose between whether or not I got to hold my nose when it comes to what he does in the bedroom, as opposed to this man is going to be bringing the doggone tangibles, if that's the case, well, that's between him and his lifestyle partner. But the thing is, Pete Buttigieg, just like Andrew Gillum, made it very clear he wasn't doing a damn thing for black people. And Andrew Gillum was worse than Buttigieg in many respects, mainly because Gillum made it clear he wasn't even going to give lip service to black people. Now you got black folks being gunned down by the cops, black people being gentrified out of existence, and Andrew Gillum's trying to sit here and do some half-baked we are the world nonsense. Well, we are the world met the real world. Yeah, you got fools like Andrew Gillum and Stacey Abrams. They're trying to recreate and they're trying to refabricate the success of Barack Obama. And what they're realizing is that the moment has passed. Barack Obama got to benefit from a very specific condition of history at that time 12 years ago. He got to benefit from that, but that is something that isn't coming back. And it's not coming back for a variety of reasons, but the main reason happens to be that young black people were the ones who put Barack Obama in the White House. And young black people are the ones demanding our tangibles. We're making it where that is the black issue. And these politicians are trying to figure out how could they circumvent it and dance around it, and it ain't working. What they're also finding is they're being held accountable for their past sins. Kamala Harris did not get brought down by any sort of white grassroots. She didn't get brought down by any white media rogue elements. She didn't get brought down by internal dissident elements inside the Democratic Party. She was brought down by the absolutely irresistible and absolutely relentless voices of the black media. That's who brought Kamala Harris down. Kamala Harris's biggest problem was not that she offended some sort of special interest group. Her biggest problem was that she had run afoul of the former slaves. That was her problem. And Andrew Gillum's blatant refusal to bend the knee to the black agenda was his. This is what these Negroes are finding out. You want to be able to hold on to office, what you're going to have to do is you're going to have to take that pledge. What they're thinking to themselves is, well, the white media, that's more important. They're going to drown these guys out. Those guys, they're just some angry Negroes online without realizing that's where the young people are at. And of course, they never learn. So what they all figure is because white supremacy is the one who pulls their strings, well, we'll just let the white media pull some sort of online outreach campaign and they'll carpet bomb the internet with ads and all sorts of dummy accounts and political operatives pretending to be, in many cases, white people pretending to be commenters in comment sections, and they'll run some videos and they'll do some Twitter tweets and that's going to make this guy solid in the eyes of black people. And we'll make sure that he's got some Negroes that he stands next to. You know, it doesn't matter if it's Jesse Jackson or if it's some worn out actor or actress in the case of Rosario Dawson, or if it's Charlemagne the Fraud, DJ Penis Envy, and the rest of the breakfast schlubs. We'll go ahead and get some of our black tools to stand beside this other black tool. And we have a closed loop of black bootlicks. And the Negroes will see that, and they're going to look and go, well, this guy must be all right. White supremacy is doing everything that it can to get us off this issue. Whether or not they are successful is going to come down to one thing and one thing only: you. They have already admitted that if we put the arm on the bastards, they'll bring up reparations. But the thing about it is, we got to make sure that they say what it is that we tell them to say. They failed to redefine reparations. So what they figured was, we're just going to stop talking about it altogether. We're just going to stop talking about it altogether. And what the early polling is already showing is that in places like Florida and such, Donald Trump is already beating Biden and Bernie. No matter which one of those idiots gets the nomination, they're irrelevant. Donald Trump's not losing anything. And why is that? It's because of the fact that the black grassroots have made it clear: no tangibles, no vote, no questions. For almost 50 years now, you've had Messy Jesse running around talking about keep hope alive. Yeah, keep false hope alive. That's what the quote should have been. Keep false hope alive and keep black economics dead. You see, all it took was one Asian American congresswoman who was sitting here saying Asian American businesses need a bailout. And you see how that snowballed. You got an entire gang of so-called black Congress people and even a couple of so-called black senators. Well, one half black senator and another one who's black when she chooses to be, an Asian the rest of the time. And yet, for some strange reason, you don't see them saying, wait a minute here, there's going to be money set aside out of the federal government and earmarked specifically for the black community. They could have done this any time, but the thing is, you do not have a white supremacist tool, which is what the congressional black talkers are. They're a white supremacist tool. They are not about to turn on the very white supremacist system that put them in office in the first place and who they depend upon for every crumb of their daily bread. They're not about to turn on them. You guys need to go back into the archives, and you need to go find the video essay that I did where I broke down a good number of the Congressional Black Talkers membership. The fact that these guys are, in a disproportionate number of them, happen to be black immigrants, including Sheila Jackson Lee, who the A-dunce clowns thought was some sort of friend. They thought that she was on their side. We're pointing out this woman's inherent contradictions outweigh whatever benefit you delusionally think you might be able to get from her. But the Congressional Black Caucus has never been for black people. You have this odd assortment of black immigrants And in other cases, you've got these biracials and such. You got a bunch of people who identify with them, who identify as being immigrants or biracial, or they identify as being something else entirely. But the point is, they don't identify with us. You need to go back in the archives and go watch that video essay. It's called Exposing the Congressional Black Caucus. It's always good to have a refresher course on who it is who's with us and who it is who's against us and why they're against us. Now that's the bad news. You already know the good news. We have demonstrated repeatedly that if we speak in one unified voice and if we are persistent, we are able to break through the white media noise machine. We are able to make our voices heard and we are able to have an impact. On even the white supremacist presidential elections, we can have an impact. When Donald Trump wins re-election, do not let anybody sit there and tell you that it was somehow the result of, the Democrats just didn't have the right message. Well, if they tried that, tell them, yeah, the message was reparations. The message was black agenda. The message was our tangibles. That was the message and you didn't have it, so that's why you didn't win. If the white media, if they decide that they're going to try to bring us in for some abuse and some shaming and the Democrats lost because black people didn't turn out, you tell them, damn right we didn't turn out. If the white media calls itself trying to make black people into some sort of whipping boy for the Democrats' inevitable loss this November, don't you sit there and shy away from it. You go ahead and take full credit. Damn right. Say it loud and proud. Yes, we were the ones who denied the Democrats the presidency for the second time in a row. We did that. Yes, the black vote did that to you. The black vote decides whether or not you're going to get into office. The road to the White House goes straight to the black community, and you will not get any black immigrants, or you're not going to get any biracials who only want to claim to be black when it suits them and deny it the rest of the time, like Kamala Harris. You're not going to get some sort of duplicitous, odd creature like Andrew Gillum. You're not going to have them speak for us, and you ain't going to have some old civil rights retreads, some old fossils from the 70s like Messy Jesse speaking for us either. You're not going to carpet bomb us with white media propaganda. You're not going to have some blackface trying to sell us the white lies and think that we're going to be parroting that garbage. Those days are done. The black media killed that strategy. The black community is speaking with its own voice, led by the new voices of black media, and the message that the black media is proclaiming is undeniably clear. No tangibles, no vote, no kidding.